Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon, not here with Geeky Sparkles again. She's sitting out today's videos. She should be back later tonight, hopefully tomorrow. So you're stuck with me. So we're going to talk about tech because I like to talk about tech because I worked in tech and I keep an eye on all of the craziness going on in the tech world right now. And SVB is definitely the biggest story. And there's a lot of finger pointing going on as to why this bank failed. I fully don't understand why the bank failed. Lots of people have theories. Again, everybody's pointing fingers, but this is one of the most unique theories that I've heard, that employees are blaming remote work for the bank's failure. Yes, you know how everybody in tech was like, yeah, remote work is fine. Everybody should just work at home. And, you can work like 2 hours a day in and around your chores and watching Netflix and whatever. Yeah. And in some cases, look, I'll be honest, remote work does work. I actually worked remotely for about 5 or 6 years when I worked for a tech company that did mostly government contracts. I mean, I had to earn the right to work at home because I'd been there for years before that, but it does work out well for some employees. Trustworthy employees. Not everybody can work from home unsupervised. And anyway, I just think it's really interesting with all these calls for people to work from home and a lot of these tech employees trying to unionize to be able to work from home. And we have Hollywood employees getting angry that they're not allowed to work from home anymore. Now we've got the employees of SVB coming out and blaming remote work for the bank's failure. Meanwhile, SVB files for bankruptcy protection. So it's gonna get worse, guys. I don't know what to tell you. It's really bad. Like, there's gonna be this massive domino effect. And, if you remember back to 2008, those of you who are old enough or who were paying attention back then, 2008, the crash didn't all come at once. It wasn't just, Lehman Brothers in the fall or whatever. It actually was happening in real time, slowly in the spring. It started in the spring because we were trying to buy a house in 2008. And the banks all of a sudden, like, we had approval and then we didn't have approval. And then, like, our contacts at certain banks, I think Wells Fargo was one of them, they just would, like, disappear. They get gone. They got laid off. And then really it became obvious that we were in deep, deep doo-doo in the fall of 2008, going into 2009. Then 2009 is when a lot of retail stores went out. I think the same thing is happening here. Everybody's trying to say, oh, this is fine. This is fine. This is going to be fine. It's okay. It's just a bump in the road. And I think we're going to see that the rot is much more substantial than we believed. And there were so many things contingent on trusting these banks. And that's what's going on here, is there's a violation of trust. You think you put your money in a bank, it's going to be there when you need to get access to it. And that's not actually the case now. Oh, up to $250,000, which is like nothing in Silicon Valley, right? So yeah, we've got the Treasury Secretary Yellen saying not all uninsured deposits will be protected in future bank failures. So a lot of people, I think, are probably going to start pulling their money out. And then we've got something going on in Switzerland now. People are doing a bank run in Switzerland. I don't know. Multiple banks are failing. And I think we're going to see more and more people panic, more and more people pull their money out, and more and more companies being afraid to spend because they don't know where things are at right now. So let's talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Almost 300,000 subs. Thank you so much for the support. Speaking of support, we're working on a support system for Clownfish. We're going to branch out into podcasts and some other things, trying to spread out a little bit. The reason we're doing that is partially because of this. And I don't trust YouTube to be our sole platform. So I'm trying to make sure that we build up our websites. You can go to clownshishtv.com, piratesandprincesses.net, and also our podcast. We're starting a podcast network. We're going to be doing original podcasts, which will be us doing podcasts, but we also have some affiliates that are coming on, some people that are in the pop culture space. So hopefully we're going to get some different voices in there. We got details to come. We're getting there. We're getting there slowly, unfortunately, but we are getting there. So this is coming from Yahoo Finance. Let's talk about this first. SVB Financial files for bankruptcy protection. The parent company of Silicon Valley Bank filed for Chapter 11 a week after regulators seized its struggling lender. SVB Financial, the parent of failed Silicon Valley Bank, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy 1 week after regulators seized control of the company's Santa Clara-based lender. The filing Friday in a New York bankruptcy court does not include the bank, SVB Financial's venture capital arm, SVB Capital, or broker-dealer SVB Securities. The company said in a statement that it intends to use bankruptcy to evaluate strategic alternatives for SVB Capital and SVB Securities, as well as other assets and investments. In its filing, listed as much as $10 billion in assets and liabilities. We're going to continue to operate and serve clients led by their longstanding and independent leadership teams, the new chief restructuring officer said. Its venture capital arm has a long reach in Silicon Valley. SVB Capital manages $9.5 billion and had stakes in several major venture capital firms, such as Sequoia Capital and Andreessen Horowitz. Now, Sequoia Capital is a big one. I'm very aware of that, according to a report from The Information. The company said in a bankruptcy filing it has between 1,000 and 5,000 creditors. Money raised from asset sales during a bankruptcy sometimes typically are used to pay creditors, such as bondholders. The Wall Street Journal reported this week that hedge funds and other money managers have been buying SVB Financial bonds. Oh, shit. It's not unusual for the holding company of a failed bank to file for bankruptcy. In fact, that's what happened in 2008. Okay, so they're bringing that up again. Guys, I am telling you, the ripple effects of this are going to be catastrophic. This is going to wipe out the tech sector. It's going to wipe out a lot of media. This coupled with everything going on with, Biden wanting to ban TikTok and Elon Musk buying Twitter and all this shit. This is pretty much it. You're witnessing the beginning of the end of the social media era, I think. Because I think what's going to happen, the lesson from this going forward is going to be you build a sustainable business. You don't borrow more money than you can pay back. The days of having a startup with, a well-funded startup where people are getting $100,000, out of the gate to write, hot takes on video games that nobody cares about, and also, throwing in a bunch of anti-Trump crap. Those days are over. BuzzFeed's telling its reporters to write more with a 40% reduction in staff. And you know what I'm saying? It's over. This whole era, the last 10 years, 12 years is being snapped away. Okay, you're witnessing a seismic shift in how the internet is going to function and how digital media is going to function. And I think some people are going to benefit greatly from this. I think if you're an independent creator and you're good at building your own shit, you might benefit greatly from this because a lot of the big players are going to be taken out and people are still going to be looking for content, but they're not going to be going to the usual outlets because a lot of them aren't going to be around anymore. That's my personal opinion. But this is definitely a shift. We're going to have a lot of people in tech that got jobs, six-figure jobs right out of college that are going to be very, very salty, but they also don't have the ability to start their own shit. Somehow they worked in tech and they can't build their own websites. Go figure. Anyway. So regulators last weekend made it clear Silicon Valley Bank shareholders and debt holders would not receive any government help. Depositors would. The FDIC said it would backstop all depositors, including those above the FDIC insurance threshold of $250,000. But apparently this is a one-time only thing. Apparently, because I think we're going to have a lot more banks fail. Everybody's going to panic. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. 4 hours ago, SVB employees blamed remote work for bank failure. A story in the Financial Times on Thursday, current and former Silicon Valley Bank employees cited the bank's commitment to remote work as one of the reasons for its failure. In the aftermath of the collapse of the 16th biggest bank in the country, everyone's trying to understand what happened. Yeah, I don't fully understand what happened. Everybody's got theories. I got people in the comments that are like, because of this and that and the bonds and the inflation. I'm like, okay, look, plain English. There are a lot of reasons. We've got people on the right. They're like, it's because the wokies were running the bank. And I think there's a kernel of truth to that. I think that they did put more emphasis on DEI than they did on their financial fiduciary responsibilities. I do believe that, but I don't think it was the sole reason. This should not have happened. People should have seen this coming from a mile away, and they did not. They did not. So there's definitely a failure in the banking system in general, which again tells me that this is going to happen again. This is going to happen again because if it could happen at SVB, it can happen anywhere else too. Whether remote work led directly to a bank failure or whether poorly managed remote work was simply a sign of bigger problems at the company, we may never know. Either way, what happened at SVB will likely enter the broader debate about returning to the office. Details, the banking industry has led the return to office charge for a while, and SVB was an outlier in its commitment to something different. Again, this is probably where a lot of the DEI stuff came in, because that mentality, was all about accommodating the worker as much as you could. And I think you can to a certain extent, but you also have to get stuff done, and you need to have oversight. You need to have oversight. And apparently this bank had no oversight. I can't imagine why I didn't have oversight when everybody's working at home. The company's career site touted its flexible culture. If our time working remotely has taught us anything, it's we can trust our employees. We can trust our employees to be productive from wherever they work, except for the ones who are supposed to be paying attention to make sure the ship didn't hit the iceberg. The executive team at SVB was spread out across the country, with CEO Greg Becker at times working from Hawaii. SVB included remote work as a risk to its business in its 2022 annual report, in part because of its IT issues posed when employees are dispersed around the country, but also for productivity reasons. You don't say. Again, remote work works when your remote workers work. And if you can't watch them, then you don't know what the hell is going on sometimes, right? And you can't watch everybody. The FDIC, which now runs the bank, told staff they could continue working remotely except essential workers and branch employees, per Reuters. Whether or not remote work succeeds in any organization depends a lot on how it's managed. That is true. There are well-managed organizations that operate remotely, said Kevin Delaney, CEO of Charter. Some companies have abandoned remote work or hybrid work models because they weren't well run. And again, you can't always trust your employees. If you can, that's one thing. Like I said, in my case, our company did allow remote work. We did work with government stuff, but you had to earn the right to work remotely. What had happened was we had made the decision we were going to move away from one area to another area. We were going to go buy a house. My wife wanted to be closer to her family. And I said, look, one way or another, I'm moving. I would like to continue to work for this company. I like this company, but here's the deal. You're going to lose me if I can't work remotely. And I'm sorry, but and they said, yeah, we don't want to lose you. So you can work remotely. And that's what happened. And I did that, like I said, for about 5 years, and it worked well, but I did have more accountability. Weirdly enough, I got more done, I think, at home, but I had more accountability when I was working remotely. Basically, they would periodically call me at home to make sure I was actually at my desk, or they'd send me a message on the company chat to make sure I was at my desk and not just flitting around or whatever, which is weird because that didn't happen when I was in the office. I was in the office. I clearly could see, hey, the light's on in his office. He's there. Even if I wasn't getting anything done, the light is on in the office. So obviously you're working, right? We just trust that you're working. Best Buy, an early pioneer of hybrid work, got rid of its hybrid work policy because it had stopped training new employees on how to operate in a flexible work environment. Best Buy is still around. Yahoo famously called all its employees back to office a decade ago when the new CEO took the helm, tried to turn that sinking ship around. It's still around, and kind of. The immediate cause of SVB's failure, as we've said before, was the company didn't take into account the risks that a high interest rate environment coupled with its concentrated tech-heavy clientele posed to its balance sheet. Yeah, a lot of tech companies heavily hit, for sure. And then its public communications around a needed capital raise incited panic, which led to an unprecedented viral bank run. Basically, take your money out now. If you don't take your money out now, you're not getting your money. Everybody took their money out all at once. They didn't have enough to cover it. Boom, the bank closes. The thing is that even people that are banking elsewhere, they might do the same thing just to make sure they have access to their cash, because there has been a domino effect. A lot of places sending out memos, hey, we can't pay people this week, or we can't pay our vendors this week, whatever, because we don't have access to our money yet. We don't know what's going on. And a lot of people are like, I'd rather have, $1 million under my mattress, at least I know it's there, than have it in some bank. You know what I'm saying? It's certainly possible that if more executives are working in closer proximity, those missteps would have been avoided. It's hard to really know. Basically, nobody was paying attention, and it was mismanaged for sure. And I do think that in some cases, remote work does open up the potential for mismanagement, miscommunication, for sure. I think again, this whole situation is going to be a massive reset of tech. I think we're going to go back to what it was 10 or 15 years ago, sustainable businesses without huge injections of venture capital. They're going to have to build the computers in their garage and work their way up, and that's how it used to be. And it might take you 10 or 15 or 20 years to get there. It might take you multiple generations to get there. But the days of, companies like BuzzFeed popping up overnight with, well-staffed employees and, lavish New York offices or whatever, those days are over. They're over for good. Like, I don't see it coming back, because we're going to learn from this and be like, yeah, hey, let's work on sustainability first, and then we can grow, and then we can give people raises, and then maybe if we've got the right employees, we can trust them to work at home. Let's not borrow more than we can pay back. Let's make sure that there's actually a market for our product, and we're not just like coming up with some bullshit to tick off some ESG check boxes or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's like, let's make sure the general public actually likes what we're selling. And that's what we need to do, in my opinion. I'm going to wrap it up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, we'll talk later.